something's unusual happening. There are 8 boats that are going right up the middle of the Hormuz Strait. 8 big tankers are going loaded up with oil right through. And I said, well, I guess they were right, and they were real. And I think they were Pakistani flagged. And I said, well, I guess we're dealing with the right people. And actually, they then apologized for something they said, and they said, we're going to send 2 more boats. And it ended up being 10 boats. All right, I hope I haven't screwed up your negotiations, but I thought it was appropriate to say, because I did taunt you the other day by saying they're going to give us a present.
20 million barrels of oil every single day, moving through a strip of water so narrow you could drive across it in under an hour. 33 miles. That is all that stands between the global economy and collapse. One country controls the switch, Iran, and they don't need a single warship to flip it. They just need to say the words. In 2019, they nearly did. Tankers were burning. Insurance companies were pulling out. Oil markets were already flinching before a single shot was officially fired. The world held its breath, and most people never even knew how close we came. So the Gulf states made a decision. Spend $100 billion. Build a way out. Draw a new map of energy that cuts Iran out of the equation entirely. But here's what nobody is telling you about this plan. Pause everything you think you know about oil and war, because this isn't about missiles. It's about a choke point, and choke points are the real weapons of the modern world. The Strait of Hormuz is not just a shipping lane. It is the world's most important energy corridor. Roughly 20% of all the oil traded globally passes through it. Every barrel flowing from Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, the UAE, and Iran itself goes through those same 33 miles of water before it reaches Asia, Europe, or anywhere else. Think about what that means in human terms. You feel it at the gas pump first. Within days of a closure, fuel prices spike globally. Truckers slow down, delivery costs climb. Factories in South Korea and Germany start rationing. Heating bills in Europe jump before winter even hits. And in countries already on the economic edge, inflation doesn't just rise, it detonates. All of that from 33 miles of water. And Iran understands this perfectly. They don't need to win a war to cause maximum damage. They just need to threaten the strait convincingly enough that shipping companies start rerouting, insurance premiums explode, and the oil markets do the rest. It's economic warfare with no bombs required, just presence, just posture. Just the credible promise that things could get very bad, very fast. They've used it before. The tanker war of the 1980s, the mining operations in 1988, the harassment campaigns in 2019. Iran treats the Strait of Hormuz as a loaded gun pointed at the global economy, and they are always willing to let you see the barrel. That is the problem, and building pipelines doesn't change it. Not yet. Not fully. This was supposed to be solved already. Let that sink in. The world didn't just now realize the Strait of Hormuz was a vulnerability. They've known for decades, and they tried to build around it. Twice. Saudi Arabia built the Petra Line, also called the East-West Pipeline, in the early 1980s. It runs 750 miles across the Arabian Peninsula, from the eastern province straight to the Red Sea port of Yanbu. At full capacity, it can carry 5 million barrels per day. That was the original emergency exit. Then the UAE built their own. The Abu Dhabi Crude Oil Pipeline, the ADCOP, came online in 2012. It cuts 236 miles through the desert to the port of Fujairah on the Gulf of Oman, completely bypassing the strait. Capacity? Around 1.5 million barrels per day. Combined, that's roughly 6.5 million barrels on a good day. And the strait is moving 20 million. Do the math. Even with both legacy pipelines running at maximum output, you're covering less than a third of total strait flows. The backup plan was always broken. It was built to signal resilience, not deliver it. which means the world spent 40 years believing it had an exit strategy, when what it actually had was a fire escape that only fits 5 people. So now comes the real plan, the $100 billion answer. It starts with what already exists. The Petro line is being expanded. The UAE's ADCOP pipeline is getting upgraded. But the centerpiece, the piece that makes this plan genuinely historic, is something that doesn't exist yet. Something still on blueprints, still being argued over in boardrooms and government ministries across the Gulf. The Arabian Canal. The concept is audacious. A massive artificial waterway cutting across the UAE, connecting the Persian Gulf interior directly to the Arabian Sea. Not a pipeline, an actual navigable canal, wide enough for supertankers, deep enough for fully loaded VLCCs hauling 2 million barrels per ship. Ships that currently have no choice but to pass through the strait would have an entirely new route, a route Iran cannot block. Alongside it, deep water port upgrades on the Arabian Sea coast. Fujairah is already being built out as a major oil storage and bunkering hub. Oman's Duqm port is being positioned as a full-scale energy terminal. Infrastructure that would allow oil to be stored, transferred, and shipped from outside the Gulf entirely. The total price tag, depending on which estimate you trust, sits somewhere between $100 billion and $120 billion, possibly more by the time shovels actually hit the ground at scale. The timeline? Conservative estimates say 8 years to see meaningful new capacity come online. More realistic projections say 12. That's if political will holds. That's if funding doesn't stall. That's if the projects don't get caught in the friction between Gulf states that publicly cooperate and privately compete. This plan is real. It is moving. But it is moving slowly, and Iran is watching every inch of it. Here's the question that keeps defense analysts up at night. You can build the pipeline, but can you protect it from a single drone strike? Pipelines are fixed infrastructure. They don't maneuver. They don't evade. They run in straight lines across open desert for hundreds of miles, and every inch of that line is a target. Iran's ballistic missiles can reach anywhere in the Gulf. Their Shahed drones have already demonstrated the ability to strike Saudi oil facilities with stunning accuracy. In 2019, the Abqaiq attack knocked out 5% of global oil supply in a single strike. One coordinated attack, a handful of drones. Now imagine those same drones aimed at a 750-mile pipeline carrying 8 million barrels a day in an active crisis scenario. The pipeline becomes the new chokepoint. You haven't eliminated the vulnerability, you've just moved it, spread it out across a longer, thinner, harder to defend line instead of concentrating it in 33 miles of water where the US Navy can at least project force. And even at full build-out, even if every pipeline expansion is completed, every port is upgraded, the canal is dug and operational, the alternative route capacity tops out at somewhere between 8 and 10 million barrels per day. The strait is moving 20 million. You still can't replace it. Not fully. Not fast enough. Not even close. So the fatal flaw isn't engineering. The fatal flaw is that no pipeline can be protected as effectively as a naval corridor, and no alternative route yet conceived can carry the full weight of what the strait carries every single day. But here's where the framing shifts entirely, because this plan was never just about oil. The Gulf states are not building $100 billion in infrastructure because they think Iran is about to close the strait tomorrow. They're building it because they are done being held hostage. That's the geopolitical message underneath every pipeline and every port upgrade. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman, they are signaling to Tehran, to their own populations, and to every energy market in the world that Iran's leverage has an expiration date. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not in 5 years, but the clock is running. And they are not alone. China gets over 40% of its oil through the strait, and China does not like single points of failure. India has deep water access ambitions and energy security concerns of its own. The United States, even as it reduces domestic dependence on Gulf oil, cannot afford to let the global economy get held ransom by a 33-mile choke point it has pledged to protect for 50 years. This is a long game. Quiet money, patient infrastructure, designed not to win a battle, but to shift a balance of power so slowly that by the time Iran realizes the leverage is gone, the concrete is already dry.
So here's what you actually need to understand. This isn't really about pipelines. It isn't about canals or deep water ports or the engineering marvel of moving 8 million barrels a day through desert. It is about making sure that a country the size of Iran, with a navy, a drone program, and a strategy built entirely on geographic leverage, can never again hold the entire global economy hostage through 33 miles of water. That is the mission. Everything else is construction. Whether it succeeds depends on money, time, political will, and whether the Gulf can hold together long enough to finish what it started. We'll be watching every pipeline, every port, every drone test, and every diplomatic signal that tells us whether this plan is moving forward or quietly dying in the desert. If you want to stay ahead of what's coming in the Gulf, and you should, subscribe now, because the next chapter of this story is already being written, and when it breaks, we'll be here.